This is Craig Thomas. Welcome back to Sunrise Focus, and a special thanks to some very patient guests this morning. They came in this week to do what they thought was a quick radio shot about animal warriors, and ended up staying a while so that we could feature them on Sunrise Focus this morning. And our focus is animal warriors, and more importantly, what's yet to come for the Wilmington area. A sanctuary that will do exactly what, Scott?
Well, what the sanctuary will do here in Wilmington is basically we're gonna have we want a lot of land. We want a nice big facility, and of course my background is the big carnivores, lions, tigers, and that sort of thing. So we won't be adopting those out. They'll come to live at the sanctuary permanently. But also when I'm doing this stuff, I get calls, I get emails every single day about a horse that needs a home, about a goat, about multiple dogs, about chickens, ostriches, and then all the exotic animals, monkeys on top of all that. Now, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are sanctuaries for farm animals. There are sanctuaries for monkeys, for primates. There's even sanctuaries for cows. So really, a lot of these places, again, like the other facilities, they just don't have the room. They don't have the money. And every new animal they take on is of course, a huge cost. And not just what the animal needs to eat, but also a new enclosure for it, new accommodations for it, and that costs money too. Now, most of these places can come up with a way to take the animals, but usually not in the emergency time that they need to get them. So what our big facility, in addition to housing the exotic animals, being a permanent home for that, we also want to be sort of a holding area or a temporary home for many of these cats and dogs, or these farm animals, or even these birds that are awaiting permanent homes and sanctuaries. Because as I've traveled and filmed these TV shows, we can go in and rescue the 6 tigers from a backyard, as crazy as that sounds, but what happens is we're also leaving dogs behind, or maybe rabbits, or even ostriches, these animals that were sort of auxiliary. They were there too, and we went and got the tigers out, and then there's what happens to those other animals. And I've seen that over and over again, and there's just not a big facility that can step in and help these animals at a moment's notice. And that's really what we want animal warriors to be. Again, we're not trying to take donations or even animals away from other sanctuaries, but we want to be there when they need help, and we want to be able to step up and house these animals, whether it's 100 chickens or a horse, or a couple of dogs, or 6 lions. We want to be ready, and and not just us. We want to have our facility here, our base of operations, but have a network across the country of transportation, people with facilities, with animal experience that can step in and help in these times of emergency. And again, we're not reinventing the wheel. There's organizations in place, but we just want to help all of them. We want to be the warrior that steps in and helps everybody out.
One of the most important things for me to come out of what you just said is you are a complementary organization to all the other organizations that basically have the same mission as you do. You work together, and that's important to me and a lot of listeners. This is not a competition. People in some areas often step on each other and fight each other, but this is not the case. This is not somebody new coming to town to take away, for lack of a better word, business in this area.
Right, and to piggyback on that, our fundraisers, what we do, everything, we're going to have a world-class sanctuary. It's going to be an amazing facility, and we're going to have animals that do live there permanently, especially the exotic animals. And we're going to have an educational facility there. It's going to be a great place for kids to come on field trips or to come and see how a real farm works. When I go and talk in schools, I'm always amazed when I talk to kids and ask them where milk comes from or eggs, and they say the grocery store or Harris Teeter, and there's really no connection to the industry where they're getting the stuff they eat from. Probably half of them would be vegetarians if they saw what went into all of this. But we want to just show them what that's all about. And I think what's missing a lot in today's society is a connection with animals. A lot of us that have, grew up in rural areas, we saw animals every day. A lot of kids now, they spend their time in front of the TV, they go to school, they go to soccer practice, they just don't ever have that connection with an animal. And if they're not lucky enough to have a pet dog or cat at home, they're just things they see on TV or see on the computer. So we really want to open up that connection, and kids love animals, and I love teaching kids about animals, so they can come there and see that. And we want to have that organization as well. And then again, just have this network, have this animal warrior army that can go out and just about help any animal in any situation. Very lofty goals. I do understand that, but We can do it.
What a great added benefit, the education side of this, as to what you were saying could very well happen. You kind of are going to be a clearinghouse for other organizations that need help, that can't handle a particular situation, at least for a while. And you mentioned like being an umbrella for those other organizations as well, whether it be Humane Society or other.
When you talked about the infighting, and you know what I've seen in the industry or in this type of field, that a lot of animal people are animal people. They're not people. So they're great with taking care of their animals and going in there, but you know they don't have real good people skills. So there's a lot of fighting, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff. So we also want to be a little bit of a mediator and really just make sure everyone knows we're trying to accomplish the same goal. We're trying to help these animals, and again that sort of good spirit that comes out of all of that, it makes everything a little better. It makes your life better.
Sure does.
Now, there was something that you brought up to me a couple months ago, and I don't know if you said this earlier, but what really clicked home with me is when you told me a few months ago, you said, they have these animal shelters, there's these certain kind of dogs, and they will automatically get put down. But hey, I see that your shelter's full. How about we take that pit bull and we'll give you that cute puppy that we just had, so that all of those can be adopted. There's some dogs that are just deemed unadoptable. Do you remember you talking about that a couple months ago?
Absolutely, and the people that I know in the shelters, a lot of times when a big dog comes in, or a black dog comes in, or a dog that someone deems might be part pit or might be part Rottweiler, any of the bully breeds, they don't get adopted very easily. And really, those animals are usually just euthanized because they can't take up cage space for an animal that's a lot more adoptable. So we'd like to have, again, this sort of animal warriors army of these foster homes that can take in these amazing dogs. They're all great dogs, and sort of teach them to live in a house, make sure they're safe around kids, make sure they get along with the other pets, whether it's cats, dogs, and maybe we can help make them adoptable, and then send them back to the organization and say, look, he's ready to go. Here's our stamp of approval. And then, of course, there's some dogs that were in bad situations, and maybe they were mistreated, and maybe they're never going to be great house pets, but they still deserve a good life. So we will have a facility for feral cats where they can live there, cats that have different contagious diseases where they can't make good house pets, and then an area of dogs, maybe a kennel where our volunteers take care of these animals and interact with them, but they're probably not the best dogs for someone's home as a house pet.
Very good.
That's going to be a big part of it as well.
And who was that? I'm sorry, what was your name?
Sheila Brothers, ladies and gentlemen.
Did you bring her?
When you bring people like this to your forum, I'm going to show up. Come on.
You have a birthday and you just forget what show you're supposed to be part of and what you're not. Just chime right in. Deborah, you have been long associated with Scott, and it's because you relocated here that this kind of happened, right?
Yes, well, what happened, I relocated here because of the job at the Betty Cameron, and I looked around, as Scott was mentioning, the climate is ideal, the people here are fabulous, there are an amazing number, I think, relatively speaking, of animal lovers, a lot of really caring people here. The location, just in terms of where we are on the coast, of being more of a central area, just everything really seemed to be perfect for setting up this kind of facility. And so I kind of pitched it to Scott, and he agreed, and here he is.
Hard to turn somebody like that down, huh?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good, and land's expensive at different places, and when you're talking about these facilities, you don't just need 200 acres, you also need fences and buildings and all kinds of stuff. So we think there's going to be a lot of people here that will want to help us out when it comes to really getting this thing going.
Your first step in helping make it happen is Feast for the Beast. The first one, January 29th, Tuesday, 7 p.m., Aubriana's Restaurant, 115 South Front Street. Reservations can be made by calling 910-763-7773. That's 910-763-7773. And once again, find out more about the event, find out more about the organization on the website.
Website, Facebook, Animal Warriors. Just Google us. Everything will come up.
Thank you, guys. You've been patient. And
thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Craig.
You've been listening to Sunrise Focus, a public affairs presentation of Sunrise Broadcast.